Sachs, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb in Real Estate Show with Stan DeFreitas, the dad, and James DeFreitas, the son. For the next hour, call in with your questions about gardening, growing your favorite veggies, and growing your profits in real estate. Call them anytime at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now, your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And a big good morning to you, good afternoon or evening, depending on where you are and the time you're at. There you are. I can hear myself now. The thing was down too low.
Yep.
So, James, my son, of course, is my co-host every week. Well, every third week I do a solo show, but you're here most of the time.
That's right. And then when I'm not here, I'm here in spirit. But and again, one of the things I might mention to people too, if you have a gardening question or if you have a bug identification question, you might go and point your browser to askmrgreenthumb.com. That's ASKMR greenthumb.com. Once you're at the website, you can click on the Ask button, and you can literally submit your question right there through your mobile phone. Just if you need to send more than one photo, then yeah, you'll probably need to send, multiple questions, click on the link multiple times. And if it's something that you really want pertinent and you want it done quickly, you can always send Stan or myself a text message with all the photos that you have too. We're okay with that as well. So, and they could do that at what number?
They can give us a call at 727
423-4794. I'll help you out with
423-4794. I started trying to think of your number, which is 254-7127.
Sure. And if people have questions, they can always get me too at 727-254-7127.
Especially for Dream It Real Estate.
Right. If they want to contact me about any kind of real estate questions or any kind of up-and-coming ideas, which brings me to a really good point, because one half of the show, we talk a little bit about real estate. It's gardening and real estate. And everyone goes, well, I don't know why you combine the two. That just doesn't seem right. I don't know why you do that.
And we do it because there's a natural connection.
Correct. And the reason that we do it is because you really don't care about your gardening until you own some real estate. If you're in an apartment, you might be just having a small little patio area, and that might be all you get for gardening. And in that case, you're probably doing some container gardening because that's the one thing you can control. But the problem with patio gardening is, what kind of sunlight do you have? You're going to have very low sunlight, typically, depending upon where your patio faces. Maybe you're in a situation where you get full sun. Well, then the options are a little bit more open for you. But if you're in an area where you don't get any sun, well, then you're going to be looking at broadleaf plants. You're going to be looking for something that can do well in the shade.
Ferns, philodendrons,
right,
pothos, things of that nature, or maybe some bromeliads will take lower light, though they like a little bit of light to bloom.
And I'm not a real big fan of telling people to plant bromeliads. People like to do it, and I'll tell you why. They like to plant bromeliads because they're cheap, and they grow, and they do well.
And they're tough.
The only problem that I have in Florida is that we get a ton of water. And what do bromeliads do?
They can hold the water in their cups often.
Right.
So that can be a problem, but you're probably going to have areas somewhere in your yard that's holding water anyway, or somewhere nearby.
Right. But my thoughts to it is that, you have to look at the big picture. You can't control what your neighbor does, but you can control what you do. And if you have something that is catching water, there are plenty of other beautiful plants that you can pick that don't contribute to the propagation of more mosquitoes. We don't need more of them.
Sure.
So you can pick things that aren't going to do that. And so I strongly recommend people, look, bromeliads have their place. It's just not in my backyard. NIMBY. Not in my backyard. And the reason that I suggest that is that we don't want more West Nile. We don't want any of this stuff. And let's say you're like, well, I don't really care, no biggie. I bet you like your pet, right? Why do you think, and let me give you a little crash course here. Why do you think every month you have to give your dog HeartGuard?
Because of mosquitoes.
Because of mosquitoes.
They like to bite your pet just as well as they like to bite you.
Right. The differences between us is that we have some natural immunity in not having, when we get bit, we don't seem to have the same problem that dogs get with heartworms. And again, why do you have to give it to them every month?
Because it has a residual. It only lasts so long.
Well, the life cycle of the heartworm is the main reason, and it's because you're stopping that life cycle, and then the vets are expecting that your pet's going to get bit again, And I would probably argue, too, that if you have a long-haired pet, they probably have a better chance of not getting bit as much as a short-haired dog. So groomers are going to hate me when I say this, because I'm going to say, well, maybe you should let it grow out a little bit more, because then they'd be a little bit better protected if you're anti-chemical and you don't want to constantly medicate your pet.
But they're going to tell you, oh, my dog gets all natty up, and I really like
Right.
I like the look of Pierre when he's all trimmed.
Right, and I get it. You know, I mean, my neighbor has a dog named Jaja.
Yeah.
So, she takes her dog, her poor dog, who looks like it's getting trimmed up and turns into, they basically make like a little, tuxedo.
Topiary.
Yeah, it's like a topiary for a dog. I don't know how natural that looks for a dog, but I know that people often do things that they, that are traditions that they see.
Your neighbor have the dog's nails painted?
As much as I think she's a great lady, I try to run hide as much as I can, because every time I see her, it's a 25-minute conversation, and she's retired. And if anybody has a neighbor like this, you know what I'm talking about.
She might be out painting your nails after a while.
Well, no, and that's one of the reasons why I'm married, and no, we're not batting for that angle there. But I understand and can appreciate what you're saying.
If a dad can't give his son a hard time, what can you do?
Well, then you get a PhD in that.
But anyway, get a PhD in something.
All right. But one of the things we were talking about before in the real estate side of thing, and again, it came up again with another friend of mine who may be interested in going into the real estate market. He talks himself out of it about as much as he talks himself into it. But one of the things we were talking about is we had a lunch recently, and he was telling me how offended he felt when one of the agents, because he was talking to his wife, and they were in a position where they were looking at 15 or 16 different homes, and the agent drove them around to 15 to 16 different homes. And then they ultimately used their next door neighbor as their agent, and not the guy who drove them around 15 or 16 times.
Any agent out there can probably identify with that story, and it really hacks you off.
Or
they go dark.
It's frustrating.
You drive them all over Kingdom Come, and they come back and go, oh, I'm going with Aunt Millie.
Right, and it happens a lot. And one of the things that's being advocated more, and something that I advocate more, is that if you're going to work with buyer's agents, then why don't you try to consider it, legally creating a loyalty agreement. And the way you do that is through a buyer brokerage agreement. So all you have to do is get your client to sign a document that says, hey, if I'm going to invest time in you, you're going to remember to be loyal to me. And let me just say this, if your buyer doesn't want to sign that, that is your cue that you have a one-sided loyalty type of arrangement. And you would be better off at that point cutting and running, because if you think that they're not going to want to sign this small document on this one basic point, how are you going to trust them to sign all of these other documents when it comes time to actually make a purchase?
It's a good point. It really is, because often if there's not a loyalty, and there's always that, yeah, we're going to go with you. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, the kid down the street, or, the guy they do breakfast with the bow tie, is going to sneak in there and take your customer. Now, your customer didn't have loyalty to you to begin with, so that shows you they don't really know loyalty. But if they did have loyalty, they would stay with you.
Sure. And I do find that people that are bald stick with other bald people, just so you know.
But we're not going to pick on anybody in particular.
That's us mentioning two people without mentioning two people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I sometimes call them a pseudo-Christian, in name only. Yeah. But I won't go too hard there.
I see now.
Yeah. Well, since we have acronyms for everything, why not?
And this is apropos, because this show does air live on Sunday mornings, so we're getting people in the Christian spirit.
Yeah.
Don't be a C-no. Don't go to church so that you can do something bad on Monday and feel better about it the next time you go to church on Sunday. Don't do it.
I had a guy ask me the other day, he goes, well, what church are you going to on Sunday? I said, normally the Church of Radio. I said,
the Church of Greenthumb.
I said, I'm normally in on a radio show, doing this show live, at least every third week. And in between, I have
you have an instant out. I mean, the way that you divert the heathen question, which you most certainly are, is that you just turn around and you say this. You say, listen, every Sunday I'm giving glory to some of God's most beautiful creations, plants, trees, shrubs, and the like. And if that isn't some part of Christian tenets of goodwill, then I don't know what is.
Well, and I do believe
that-
you can
that
talk
is-
to God, your God, underneath a tree just as well as in a pew. But that's my own personal
No,
opinion.
you need an intercessor. So.
No, I don't feel that, but I understand folks who do, and God bless you if you do.
That's right.
But we're here, of course, to answer some of your questions. Trees, shrubs, and the like. I had a gentleman the other day who gave me a call and said, he loved our show, listens to it all the time. He was interested in Pedialyte because you had mentioned Pedialyte.
Yeah, you sure
and I
did.
said, well, yeah, Pedialyte is something. I said, we don't really make any money on Pedialyte, but I'm still here to be helpful.
Well, and it's important because it's timely because, as we're, going in through the hottest months of the summer here, we do have a lot of seniors out there. And in particular, a lot of seniors are more susceptible to dehydration. And one of the things that's interesting about Pedialyte is that mostly it was thought of to be used for babies.
Right.
And it turns out that it's actually really good at adult hydration too. So now they market it in that way. It's become kind of a sports drink, a replacement that competes alongside Gatorade and the other that do the same thing. The only difference is there's a little bit more science involved, from my understanding, with the Pedialyte than, say, maybe the over-sugary Gatorade.
Yeah, I'm not sure you need too much sugar. If there's anything I've learned in life, too much sugar can be a problem. Not only for diabetics, but for your heart, for everything. And our society is geared toward that. I mean, I remember being a kid, and if I didn't have a Coke every day, I would think, gosh, the world is being cruel to me. Now, I don't think I've had a soft drink in, 6 months or a year. I mean, it's a rarity. If I'm maybe out at a restaurant or something, sometimes I might indulge in a soft drink, but I just don't do it because I know it's a lot of artificial, not just artificial, it's sugar.
And it's not good for your teeth either. So it's one of those things where, I've cut out soft drinks entirely. So, because it just, it's not a good idea. Phosphoric acid, which is what's in most Coke products, it's not good for your teeth. And with that noise, we're going to pay some bills. Don't change that dial, and Stan's going to take it away.
Yeah, if you've got a plant question, you've got a real estate question, give us a call. We're glad to answer those questions the best we can. You stay with us as the Plant Talk and Real Estate Talk continues here on AM 860, The Answer.
Interested in having a home consult? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com.
Why choose Stafford Tree Service? Is it because they're experienced, have the latest equipment, and friendly professional personnel? Absolutely. Stafford's positioned themselves as a leading tree trimming company in all of Tampa Bay. With honest professionals and competitive pricing, they'll earn your trust too. In business for over 15 years, Stafford Tree Service is licensed, bonded, and insured to provide you the very best tree trimming experience. Call today, 727-546-8786, 727-546-8786. On the web at StaffordTreeSVC.com.
Biophilia, our innate attraction to other living things. It's why people love plants. And around Tampa Bay, Plants, that's Plantz, is bringing nature inside, in workspaces and homes by delivering beautiful foliage plants. Our plants increase oxygen and filter out pollutants, reducing stress and improving productivity. And get you in touch with your biophilic side. Go to plantz.us.
At Dream It Real Estate, we're a different kind of real estate company. We embolden our clients to dream their biggest dreams and partner with us to make those dreams come true. Our emphasis is on team building with clients who become friends for a lifetime. For more information, please go to dreamitrealestate.co or call or text James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127. Dream It Real Estate is always encouraging our clients to dream big with us today. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Give them a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And we're here to answer any of your questions that may occur. If you want to call me off air sometime, I'll give you my cell number, 727 And what's that number?
423-4794. That's 727-423-4794.
What if they've got a real estate question? What number can they call?
Well, if they have a real estate question, then they can reach me, James DeFreitas, and that's 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And I'm happy to take those questions. If you have a question about what you might need to do. Now, I had a lady contact us through the radio station not that long ago, but then she started to go in and tell me about how she wanted to, that she thought somebody was squatting on her land. And I said, well, look, I'm happy to help you with a land sale, but what you're now doing is you're describing a legal liability scenario, and that is beyond my scope of what I can help you with. I can recommend you to some great attorneys that can take a look at it. And again, it's one of those things where you're not going to get a whole lot of excitement out of a real estate agent or a real estate brokerage if you start telling them that you have this legal entanglement. And while I'm on that, let me go ahead and discuss another issue that's come up that I'd like to kind of point out there. And I'm not going to name names because I want to make sure that we keep this very broad. But let's say you're in a situation where somebody dies on you, has the nerve to die on you. Let's say your mom or dad or somebody dies.
Which will happen eventually.
Right. And then let's say they die intestate. And if you don't know what intestate means, it means they died without a will. So now you are going to be forced to take that property and all other assets through probate. And that's a very expensive, time-consuming process. If somebody is very well off, that could be a multi-year process. If somebody is, modest, has a modest estate, it could be done rather quickly, 6 to 8 months. I don't want to stress the 6 months part, but usually aim for the longer. The other thing I would suggest to you is that there's one of the issues that some people are going to be put into is that let's say you are the one that is most in line or was the one that was helping to take care of mom or dad before they deceased. And it's pretty clear that you have a good bead on that piece of real estate. But what happens if you are not the only child and it's stickier? Well, one of the things that the probate attorney, and again, I'm not giving out legal advice, I'm repeating what I've heard. So let's make that very clear. One of the things that they're going to do is on the forms that they're going to turn in for you is they're going to find out if there's any other entanglements. And part of those entanglements might be that you have a brother or sister or somebody else that potentially could make a claim on the property. And the moment that you mention to them that you have a brother or sister or multiple brothers or multiple sisters, then they're going to want to make sure that they have been noticed.
Sure.
And the moment that you do that, you're going to have, now let's say you fell out of communication with them. Now you've created this uncomfortable scenario where you're going to have to communicate with them either directly or indirectly through your attorney. And they're either going to challenge your probate action by showing up in court to, either officially or unofficially through an attorney, but they're going to, try to either make a claim on a percentage basis what they are entitled to, or the other scenario is that you're going to have to get them to consider a quitclaim deed of some type so that you can have clear title to the property and actually have something that is sellable. So that's just a little bit of knowledge that I have learned over the years that is somewhat helpful if you're in that position. Now, I've had a client in the past say, well, what if I just didn't tell them I had a brother or sister? Well, I can't tell you to say that because that would be illegal. So I'm not going to tell you what to say or do. Now, whatever you do on your own that you don't tell me about, well, that's on you.
Sure.
But I'm not going to ever tell you to go against the law.
I would tell you to probably see our buddy Patrick L. Smith and, get things set up beforehand. Will save your heirs a lot of problems if you already have things kind of tied up in a bow for them. There won't be this contentious problem that often occurs.
Right.
And, you may say, well, my brother's here or my sister's there and it isn't going to be a problem. Well, it isn't a problem until money's involved. And all of a sudden, then
it's a problem.
Then somebody comes out of the woodwork that you haven't heard from in 30 years going, hey, it's a problem.
Right. And that's one of the things that you really do need to find a Patrick L. Smith type or somebody else in probate that you like, that you can work with. But you do want to try to get that wrapped up before someone passes. And realistically, it would be better if you handle it while they're still in good health instead of having to do what I call an emergency action where you're handling somebody that's on their deathbed, or unfortunately, if somebody dies. Then you're in a real panicky scenario of unknown, And a lot of times what people will do is they will do nothing. And then they will do nothing and do nothing and do nothing until they want to do something. And eventually, at some point, somebody will want to do something. And then they will have to go through the same action that they should have done right after something happened. Or ideally, they should have taken action so they could have avoided that nasty process all to begin with.
I agree.
So, so a little bit of money now could save you a whole lot of time and hassle later. And it's a much smoother process. And some of the things that people can do, one thing that you can do too, and again, not giving out real estate advice, but I'm telling you about things that exist within the legal system, is there is something called a life estate. What's a life estate? You want to answer that one?
Well, it's an estate that's set up with someone already, the assets going to that person at the time of death normally.
Well, typically, and you're on target there. The life estate typically allows the person who owns the property to live in the said property for their lifetime. And the moment they expire, then it has a nice clean chain of custody as to how the property will then move automatically to the next of kin, or somebody that is now going to inherit the property.
Normally going to your spouse first and then to a child after that.
Right. And there's a lot of different kind of ideas out there too. Sometimes people will put the property into a trust, or they'll do something called a ladybird deed, estate. And that's something that people will do as well. Again, do your research, and again, get with a licensed attorney in the state of Florida and get them to go over these things. We tend to offer, unlike other countries, the United States is we offer legal frameworks that are based on people that provide specificity to a particular area with which they handle. In other countries, it's not exactly like this. I mean, you'll talk to a barrister and they'll go, well, I do 9 different things. Now, some attorneys do that here too, but often, like when Stan and I are helping people out with eminent domain cases, often those people will just do eminent domain. They will handle just a very narrow portion of the law. They'll fill in with some other, we do a little bit of real estate closings too, because, eminent domain doesn't happen all the time, and therefore we have to keep busy. So there is a little bit of that going on too, because remember, as much as an attorney is there to help you, they are still running a business, which means they have to still make payroll. They still have to do all these other things, which is one of the reasons they charge what I feel is still an egregious amount. Maybe you think it's fine, but I don't know. 40% seems like an awful lot of money to me.
Yeah, and often. Well, we're there, of course, to answer your questions. It's a time of the year that it's hot out there. So you may start planning what you're going to do for the fall. Pedialyte to help get you moving around the yard and garden. We should have a sponsor of them. Good. Stay with us as the Plant Talk and Real Estate Talk continues.
Want to talk real estate? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com. At Dream It Real Estate, we're a different kind of real estate company. We embolden our clients to dream their biggest dreams and partner with us to make those dreams come true. Our emphasis is on team building with clients who become friends for a lifetime. For more information, please go to dreamitrealestate.co or call or text James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127. Dream It Real Estate is always encouraging our clients to dream big with us today. Did you know that Stan DeFreitas, Mr. Green Thumb, can come to your house and examine your plants, trees, and palms? His knowledge can help you become the envy of your neighborhood with lush, green, healthy trees that don't just live, but thrive. Palms and oak trees are part of what makes Florida a beautiful place to live, but they get diseases and are often cut down. We offer ways to save your trees. Call or text Stan today at 727-423-4794 or go online to AskMrGreenthumb.com. That's AskMrGreenthumb.com. Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Connect online at AskMrGreenthumb.com. Got questions about gardening, real estate, or both? Give him a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And one question I might have for you, James, since you're the real estate guru, we're both real estate agents, but it seems like things are slowing down and the price is coming off just a little.
Yeah, I mean, what we were talking about at the commercial break there is that, I'm looking at some of the long-term pricing trends for all home types. And what's interesting is it is trending down. From June to July, we saw a slight decrease, and it was the average home price was selling for $470,000, and now we're seeing that the average home price is selling for $454,000. So we're seeing a slight decrease in pricing, and that all makes sense. I mean, when you look at the charts and you see that the overall it gives you a much better picture when you realize that there's, it's sitting on the market longer, the active days on market, it's sitting there a little bit longer, and therefore, people that price things, correctly, and what we're still seeing though in real estate is if the home is in good shape, if it has a new roof, and the air conditioning isn't 100 years old, and and the kitchen's updated, and and everything looks right, then people are getting their asking price and then some. But what we're not seeing are people that are willing to come in and buy a property at a very high price that needs to be gutted. Now, there are special areas where that may be untrue. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day where he was telling me about a property in Safety Harbor where he said it looked like a shack to him, and some doctor came in and purchased the property for $800,000 and is going to just level the thing. Now, he's in kind of a insular area, in a market where it's always kind of holds its value because Safety Harbor is such a niche area, and you have a lot of people that want to live there. And it's so it's one of those scenarios where you live, location always is a big deal in real estate, and that's always going to be a thing. If you do have questions in the real estate area, or if you're interested in potentially selling or buying something, you can always give me, James, your pal on radio and in person, a call at 727-254-7127. And if you're not a phone person and you like to text, well, I can handle that too. I can shift right to the kind of communication that you want to communicate by, and my number is 727-254-7127, and you can shoot me a text letting me know that you have some questions, and we can take it from there. So I can universally adapt. And likewise, if people have a tree problem because they decided to buy some real estate through me, and now they care about their trees and plants, and they want to know more about what's going right or going wrong in their yard, they can actually get a home consultation from you, right?
Sure. We will come out and take a look at it. I do have a fee, but we can put that fee towards your treatment.
So you're going to tell them what's wrong, and then you're going to actually provide the cure, or at least some kind of help for after you tell them what's wrong with it. So
or at least you probably will be doing it for me.
Yeah, of course.
I'll be sitting in the air-conditioned car pointing. But no, I'm just kidding.
Using your brain. I like it.
We do look at trees, a lot of the older trees, and people go, well, the tree's been there forever. It's been there 50 years. It's not a problem.
Right.
Oh, contraire. If you see sap, you see cracking bark coming off that tree, you've got a problem.
Right.
And it's kind of like a guy going, well, I can't get up the steps anymore, but I don't think I have a problem. Yes, you do. You need to go see your doctor. If you can't walk up your steps without having to take 3 breaks, you've got a problem. So you need to go see our old buddy Dr. DeWolf or Dr. Kumar or whoever it may be. You need to do that up front. Right. And I'm also going to say a lot of young guys, even your age to older guys like my age, they're reluctant. I don't think I have a problem.
Well, they don't want to fit it in either.
You want to go see the doctor. If you're a little bit overweight, you got diabetes, or you got whatever.
You should have a cardiologist.
I never had diabetes, but maybe I was near pre on occasion.
Right. And by the way, if you do have diabetes, I do know this as a factual matter. If you do have diabetes or even pre-diabetes, that puts you in a whole different risk category for having heart problems.
Sure.
So it's a good tip out there. And if you're over 40, and a lot of people are that listen to us, If you're over 40, you should be going to see a cardiologist. If nothing else, prophylactically, preventative maintenance. You should let them
Get
do
a baseline.
you should let them do an EKG. You should let them do a stress test. You should let them do what they feel is necessary for you to rule out some things. Something I thought was interesting too that I'll share along with the audience is that when I went to go see my cardiologist not that long ago, one of the things that they did is they took my blood pressure on my left arm and then waited a minute or two and then took it on my right arm. Now, why would they do that? Well, they're doing that because they want to see if there's a major difference between the two. And the reason is if, let's say, you had a 30-point difference on the right arm versus the left arm, well, then they would know that that's an indication that you may have a blockage and that there's a problem. So they would then probably want to do immediately, send you in for more testing because that's not normal.
Now, was yours exactly the same?
No, it wasn't.
And probably wouldn't be, I wouldn't think.
It wasn't exactly the same, but it was pretty close.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think on my left arm, it was 117/72, and then on the right arm, it was 119/76.
So
really
within a few
close.
points.
Within a few points. And that's totally normal. What wouldn't be normal is if you had 117/72 and then 158/100 on the right. That would be bad, and that would be a really good indicator that there's something wrong.
So, and the same thing I would go back to, I just had a picture sent to me the other day of a palm tree. And the palm tree, the bottom leaves are, the middle row is not looking good. Which indicates
I don't like that narrowing that you see in that
that picture, and I sent it on to you too,
Yeah.
since you and I work together as a team.
Yeah.
And
I went right there to that same thing that you were already looking at too, and I'm almost wondering if we have rot that's setting in there, and if the whole thing eventually is going to just fall off.
I don't, we're going to see it in person.
Yeah. And this is the limitations of pictures too. Even though I recommend people go to askmrgreenthumb.com and hit the ask button, and which they can do right from their phone. I mean, and I do. I think a picture is very helpful, but there are limitations of what we can see in a picture in terms of diagnosing it.
Yeah, sometimes the plant medicine via your phone is helpful.
Right.
And I had a lady from actually going to send me more samples from New York from her other soil up there. And I said, no problem. It's like $20 a sample. So my tech can run the test for you. Mm-hmm. We're going to find out what her pH is. Her pH before now was in New York. It's different. The pH is mainly a PD type soil and it was too acid.
Interesting.
So I'm recommending 65 pounds of dolomite per 1,000 square feet to raise that
And
pH.
what is dolomite again for the uninitiated?
Is a limestone, and it's mixed. It has some magnesium in it,
Mm-hmm.
and magnesium is also one of the macro elements that plants need. Now there's N, P, and K, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, which would be like your 666 on the bag or 1648.
So as to educate people, when they go to buy fertilizer, and again, when you look at the bag, one of the things that's interesting is there's always 3 numbers on it. And that's the N, the P, and the K.
And that's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
Correct. And so it's really good to educate yourself as to not just pick up the fertilizer, but it's good to know what you're going to use that fertilizer on.
Yeah, I always made my students, when I used to teach horticulture, I'd say, okay, you're going to learn the bag. What do the elements stand for? Mm-hmm. And they'd all moan and groan. And I'd go, this is what separates you from the mow and go guy. Anybody can jump on a mower, not to offend a mower guys,
right,
and edge and blow crud on people's cars. That's not that hard to do. But learning about nutrients and what they do and how the deficiencies show up, I said, look, I'm taking you with a mind full of mush, and I'm turning you into a horticulturist here on the Greenthumb chase.
Even though a lot of them probably were going into the mow and go business.
A lot of them were, but the better ones wanted to know more.
They were going on their, so you were setting them on the path to becoming agronomists.
Agronomist or horticulturist, which I consider myself a horticulturist, and I'm also, of course, I say a certified arborist that never carries a chainsaw.
You and 5,000 other people.
A lot of people are now. Well, ever since, I will say, when Governor DeSantis has made it to where you can kind of self-regulate yourself, I do, and I like DeSantis in some things, but I'm not so sure letting the wolves guard the hen house is necessarily the best idea. I mean,
what could go wrong?
Well, yeah. The problem is when you self-regulate your folks, often people will go, yeah, well, every tree, you go, well, it used to be called the Sahara Forest. till I got a hold of it. Now it's
Right.
became the desert.
Right, and that's kind of the problem. Is that in anything that we do in terms of government, if we remove a checks and balance system, then you're almost incentivizing people to find problems with things that may be minor, And again, one of the reasons that Stan and I advocate for tree injections is because you get to keep the tree, number one, which is a wonderful carbon sequestration machine. And the other thing is that what we're trying to do with the tree injections is our main goal is to try to prevent tree failure. Okay, and that's when the tree falls over and hits something or hits a house or God forbid it hits a person, which we never ever want. But one of the things that we're also trying to do is make sure that the tree gets to live its full life cycle.
Sure. And
So-
that's valuable, that you want to try to keep as many trees as out there as you can, because
Right.
they are taking in carbon dioxide. They are giving off oxygen. And that's pretty important for the world. If you say, well, how do I make the world a little bit cooler? One of the easiest things to do is to plant a
More
billion
trees.
more trees.
Right, which we could do easily.
And we should be doing. There should be more tree cover, and we have in many areas. There's actually more trees in many areas, and as we
But
were
we
talk-
also have to be responsible with good forestry practices too. I mean, we have to make sure that we are having fire gaps and that we're making sure that, we talk about California wildfires and of course the tragedy of, the Hawaiian fire. There has to be a good set of, again, government should be working more tightly with the people that help, and listening intently to people that are in the know on good forestry practices to try to make sure that we do have the ability to have fire breaks and those kinds of things to try to, mitigate some of these problems so that they don't become, tragedies.
And I would say too, when you become a monoforest, a monoculture, you increase the chances of a disease or an insect getting in there and going, oh boy. When you have diversity in your tree canopy in your own yard, you're not dependent. If it's all pines or all oaks, it can jump.
See, there you go. Diversity, equity, and inclusion right here on
On trees
show.
anyway. So you stay with us as that continues, that theory, that specialness that you're looking for right here on AM 860, The End.
Want to talk real estate? Call James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127 or go online, aflre.com. At Dream It Real Estate, we're a different kind of real estate company. We embolden our clients to dream their biggest dreams and partner with us to make those dreams come true. Our emphasis is on team building with clients who become friends for a lifetime. For more information, please go to dreamitrealestate.co or call or text James DeFreitas at 727-254-7127. Dream It Real Estate is always encouraging our clients to dream big with us today.
Why choose Stafford Tree Service? Is it because they're experienced, have the latest equipment, and friendly professional personnel? Absolutely. Stafford's positioned themselves as a leading tree trimming company in all of Tampa Bay. With honest professionals and competitive pricing, they'll earn your trust too. In business for over 15 years, Stafford Tree Service is licensed, bonded, and insured to provide you the very best tree trimming experience. Call today, 727-546-8786, 727-546-8786. On the web at staffordtreesvc.com.
Biophilia, our innate attraction to other living things. It's why people love plants. And around Tampa Bay, Plants, that's Plantz, is bringing nature inside in workspaces and homes by delivering beautiful foliage plants. Our plants increase oxygen and filter out pollutants, reducing stress and improving productivity. And get you in touch with your biophilic side. Go to plantz.us.
Welcome back to the Ask Mr. Greenthumb and Real Estate Show. Got questions about perennial flowers? What about issues with closing on your newest property? Give them a call at 727-254-7127. That's 727-254-7127. And now your hosts, Stan and James DeFreitas.
And I will say that having a good closing agent is important. I mean, we worked for a big company, and I won't say who they were, out of countryside. And probably the worst closing agent I ever saw was working for this big company. It's a big national company. And the lady would go, "You could have it closed at one of the other offices because I don't really care if it happens here." And I'd go,
Right.
"Well, why not? This is the office I'm working out of." "Well, that means work. And you may notice I like to file my nails more than work."
Right.
And I thought, what a horrible. In fact, it came up on one. She goes, "Well, it's not closing today." I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said,
Right.
"Heck yeah, it's going to close today." And it did close, but I thought I had to fight that closing agent, and it made me hacked off. One of the reasons I wanted to leave this big company is I could see how poorly run it
Right.
was.
Well, yeah, especially with the title part of that company that you're speaking about, which will remain unnamed.
Yeah, I'm not going to name it.
But one of the things I would say is that the reason that didn't, the reason you're getting that level of service is pretty obvious, is when somebody's on a salaried wage and this is all they will ever earn, then adding more to their plate, well, that's just a burden. Now, if you incentivize the idea of adding more, then the person would be hungry to accept more. So again, what I would say is that when you cap people out on a salary, and I'm not saying that businesses can always afford to do this, but the idea that somebody is capped out on a certain salary and then there's no bonus structure for allowing for them to go beyond their salary, then you have de-incentivized the idea of taking on more work. And so, again, there is an element. I mean, salaries in some component, or in my mind, are a little bit of a socialist construct, because it means this is what you're worth. You will never be worth more than that. If you put in 80 hours, it's the same as the guy who puts in 60 hours, and it doesn't matter. Okay. So I'm not a real big fan of the concept of salaries for anybody. I mean, and you've got a friend of yours too, was telling you, she might go into working for a pharmaceutical thing as a rep. And that's great. The only issue that I have with that is there's a timeline for how valid a medication is going to be for. It usually drugs have a peak of, a bell curve, if you will, of how popular the medication will be for a period of time. And the other thing is that you're still in a situation where you're going to be earning a salary, and maybe there's a bonus structure to it, which is great. I hope there is. But the only issue that I have is that, once again, you now have a self-imposed ceiling. The United States, one of the reasons that, it is a wonderful country is that we're one of these places where we have the opportunity to start your own business. And then you can make it to where you don't have a cap. And the only cap that you have on yourself is your inability to grow or become larger at a pace that you're comfortable with. And when people say, "Oh, I've got more work than I can handle," I always laugh and scoff at that, because that tells me that you have now imposed a self-limitation as to how much you could grow, and you've also given yourself that same salary cap as to what you feel you can do.
Sure.
Now you have to be careful with that. Sometimes businesses grow too fast, too quickly, and they can't handle the flow.
And that can be a problem too.
That can be a problem too. And sometimes when you're trying to recruit people, there aren't enough people out there that can do the things that you're doing. One of the areas that Stan and I find challenging is that, in the tree injection business and in the horticultural business or consulting business, you can't teach someone overnight how to be able to go out there and look at stuff and be able to instantaneously know a value of what something is worth, how to create a report, how to be able to have a rapport with the actual person that you're doing business with, whether it's an attorney or a client. That takes a lot of time to develop those types of skills. And I put on your report just the other day that it's your 42nd year providing expert witness testimony in eminent domain cases. So,
been doing it a while.
Yeah, that's a long time. And it's you don't just go out and pluck that out of the air. So if you're talking about a very highly specialized area, well, being able to do that kind of thing is very niche. And, you're not going to find everybody has that skill set. Now, one of the things that's cool about us with the horticultural consultations is that we're front-facing. So not only do we go in and talk to people and provide them a background of knowledge as to what we're looking at, but we also provide them the solution to the problem. So we also can provide the fix. A lot of times, I don't care what it is. If you're getting a new roof, you're going to talk to a roofing salesperson first, because the guy putting on your roof doesn't have that skill set to be able to talk to you about why you need a new roof and give you the different options. That person has the ability to tear off your old roof and put on the new roof and grunt at you 3 times while he's doing it.
But God bless him for being there.
Right. And I'm not downgrading that, but I'm just saying a lot of businesses are set up to where it's separate. Another business that operates that way is when you have a problem with your car. You'll take it into the dealership, and then there will be a person that will deal with you about your car that is separate from the auto mechanic who actually does the repair. And the reason that they do that is because auto mechanics typically, not all, but mostly, don't have the same social skills that the person is going to have that is going to be front-facing with you and helping you understand what is wrong with your car. The difference between Stan and I is we can do both.
Right.
We can sit back and tell you what's wrong with your tree in a very educated, friendly manner, and then we can immediately switch to providing the fix and care that the tree needs.
And we also look at palms. I mean, often we talk about oaks because most of the big oaks are having problems. Laurel oaks and water oaks in particular, but live oaks too can have problems. And if you take a look at your trunk, you see some sap, you see some sawdust, you see some bark cracking, some bark peeling. I mean, I talked to one gentleman last year and he goes, well, I had my house rebuilt by keeping all my oaks. And I kept thinking, well, that is a smart person that realizes that if you were going to build your house around these old oaks, you need to have a program.
Right.
And it isn't just a once and done.
Right. And why is it not just a once and done?
Because you're only getting a percentage. You can lower it. It's the reason that when you take your pills, they say, look, take all 7 days, or I'll take all 10 days.
Well, not at one shot.
But let's say you're taking pills, 2 a day or 3 a day, whatever it may be. You don't just take it for a day or so and go, oh, well, this is good, because then the infection may rise again and even be worse.
Right.
So there's a reason why you listen to your doctors.
Right. And basically what Stan's getting at is that every time there is a treatment protocol put in place, whether it's for your tree or for you, there is an efficacy rate. And the same thing happens with us. We know that because the chemical that we use when we suspect that there's a wood borer infection, which is a type of beetle, is we know that there's about a 80% efficacy rate. So we know when we treat your tree that we're going to eradicate roughly 80% of any live infestation that you may have in your tree. And yes, left untreated, your tree will die. And it will die a slow, painful death. And it's totally treatable. Now, the only problem is what ends up happening is that people wait so long to look at their tree that by the time that they have us come out, we basically have to play taps, and we make the sign of the cross, and we say, geez, I sure wish you'd talk to us sooner, because there's really nothing we can do for your tree now except recommend, a Carl Yutzi or a, Kelly Stafford Tree Service to come out and take a look at it to potentially have it removed.
And that can happen.
And that's painful.
So yeah, we and I still say, if you've got dead wood, that tree ought to be removed. You've got those big branches coming over your house. We're into hurricane season now. So if you've got those branches that are too extended, I even had a branch a year or two ago, not a year ago, 10 years ago, lightning hit a tree across the street from me, and it knocked it. I had a big chunk of tree of my front door from this oak from that lightning strike.
Sure, and that can happen. Yeah.
Good question for you. Which is hotter, the sun, the surface of the sun, or a potential lightning bolt?
Lightning bolt.
Lightning bolt. Yep. Yes, up to 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun.
Right. Yeah. For that instantaneous second.
For that little bit.
Right.
But what can that do to your tree?
Well, it's going to cook. It's going to cook the tree,
and it can knock branches 30 feet, 40
right.
feet. You're going, well, it can't knock that big branch that far. Yes, it can.
It can. Yeah. It's super. Again, I mean, if it could take Marty McFly back to 1955, it can certainly kill your tree. And
but he had it attached to the clock tower.
That's true, and a DeLorean. So there was a lot going for him there. But the point of it is that just be mindful. Look at the tree. Try not to wait until you think the tree is on death's door before you decide you want to take action on something. We always recommend being proactive and having a little bit of now you don't have to do it right now because it's super hot outside. But as we start to approach the fall, do take a little inventory. Look around. Look at the trees, and if you're not sure, contact us. We tell people all the time, hey, everything's fine. You don't need to do anything. And we don't make any money, but we're being honest and being fair and treating you correctly. I do want to mention that we appreciate you listening to our show. This has been another quick hour. And of course, you can stay tuned for the Dr. Bill Handelman show. He's always interesting.
Make sure you enjoy your life and take time to smell the roses, look at some of those trees and plants and shrubs. And as my old buddy Teddy used to say, go out and live it up.
Interested in having a home consult? Remember, you can reach Stan at 727-423-4794 or on the web at AskMrGreenthumb.com.